So David, in your new book, you talk about some of the surprises of the Obama foreign policy, and one of the real surprises has been this real strong embrace of hard covert power.
And Megan, you wouldn't have expected that from the Barack Obama you heard during the 2008 campaign. He talked about engagement with other countries, turning away from the Iraq War, softer power.
America can't do this alone.
And what we discovered is that once he got into office, there were at least two big programs, two big hard power programs that he not only adopted from the Bush administration, but he doubled or tripled down. One of them, of course, is the drone program over Pakistan, and it's now spread to Yemen and used elsewhere in the world. And the other, the one they never talk about, is the cyber offensive program, which, as we reveal in the book, has been used for many years now against Iran, first under the Bush administration and now in much larger ways under Obama.
The one real wedge that the Republicans seem to have found against Obama on national security has been Iran. And some of the revelations in this book about the way that he's really stepped up this cyber attack program on Iran could potentially complicate that argument for them, no?
It certainly makes it a more complicated argument. I mean, I think it's going to be very difficult for Mr. Romney to argue that
the president's just been weak on this,
the president has sort of sat by passively.
Let's talk about one other area of the world, China. Mitt Romney has tried to find a way around the Obama administration on China, and actually, interestingly, has ended up sort of going to the left of the administration in certain ways.
This is really the world turned upside down, the politics of this. In the old days, the Republicans were the party of free trade, and the Democrats were the party that went out and talked about human rights in China and elsewhere. In this case, you've had the Republicans, or at least the Republican candidate here, talk about imposing trade restrictions from day one in retaliation for China's currency manipulations.
We can't just sit back and let China run all over us. People say, well, you'll start a trade war. There's one going on right now, folks. They're stealing our jobs, and we're going to stand up to China.
Well, that's an interesting approach that has angered
a lot of
Republicans and a lot of businesses who believe that the first companies that would be hurt would be American companies.
So David, let's say Mitt Romney wins the election. What part of the Obama doctrine, as you define it in the book, do you think he holds on to, and what part do you think he gets rid of?
Well, I think he certainly holds on to the hard power and covert elements of it. Just as President Obama took from President Bush the drone strikes and the covert program against Iran, I think the next president will have to do the same, because they are the only alternative to getting the United States, in the minds of many, into actual war. The part that I suspect that Mr. Romney would not adopt as much is the reliance on multilateral institutions, the United Nations, the IMF, and others, to act for the United States when the U.S. believes its major interests are not necessarily threatened. And here, President Obama has been more willing to sort of step back and let others take the lead.
Lead from behind.
Lead from behind is a phrase some have used. Lead from behind the scenes is another phrase they've used. I'm not sure any of them quite fit. Mitt Romney frequently says the United States should be in the lead on almost everything. President Obama says we can't afford to do that anymore. And there are some issues where other countries have greater interests than the U.S. does, and they should be investing both the time and the money and the personnel to take the lead. And I think that's a big difference in the worldview between the two men.
And that will be one of the big questions in this election.
I think it will. I think the sort of American preeminence is going to be a subtext of the whole election.